here. We've kind of covered a little bit about what I'd like to talk about here today, but we've got Joey Lee in the chair today. So you've been reffing for 19, 20 years in Queensland. How have you seen the refereeing space sort of change over those years and develop and evolve recently?
Oh, hugely. You know, you have a look through the comparison. We talked earlier about law changes and that, but culturally for ourselves, we have such a rich legacy of what we have for our quality and match officials developing forward. And like I mentioned just before, you know, you have a look at it, and Football Queensland now backing the match officials within the community with these initiatives and, you know, with these programs, you know, it's just going to solidify that and allow us to continue growing. You know, some of the match officials out there, we just had Casey Rybelt, who's going to do a A-League match this weekend in Perth against Western Sydney Wanderers. 2 months ago, she just did the Women's Asian Cup final. My wife, Lara Lee, she's just come back. She's done the the A-League W final. You know, these pedigrees huge. Chris Beath, Anton Shidden, both of them have just come back from the Olympics. You know, that pedigree, it's great. And that's from, you know, myself. I've been able to witness this and be part of some of these guys' journeys. You know, it's great. And seeing that, this is the next generation coming through. So it's really good to see that support for it.
Yeah, fantastic. How important do you see campaigns such as these that protect our game? Obviously, the teal shirt and pink armband. Also the dissent one as well. So the sin bin, a lot of people have kind of been sort of against the sin bin ruling, but what are your perspectives on that law being introduced? Series of laws being introduced into the game.
I think it's, whether you agree with it or not, the necessity of something like that, I feel, needs to be there.
Yep.
You know, it's not over sheep stations. We hear that so often, and that's the thing. You know, if we're going out and we're playing 11-a-side, or, you know, we had the beach football or the walking football recently. Yep. People want to get out and enjoy it. You know, we got a fantastic sport that we're involved with, and having these initiatives to keep the match officials involved with it and keep people's behaviours curved to concentrate on the game and enjoy it, it's huge. You know, we're so fortunate to be in Australia and, you know, be in a state that supports it so well, you know, having Football Queensland's backing with these things. And I know, you know, referees, and we got the opportunity to be here today, but get this out of the way and let people concentrate on the game. You know, we're gonna love it so much more and build a strong game for the future.
Yeah. How have you been finding the introduction of the dissent rule?
Well, the dissent rule, I think it's a fantastic tool for a lot of the players for years. And when Joey and I were coming through, it's taken a few years to come through. When we were coming through, you know, we'd have to go the yellow card, and the player would still be on the field. Whereas now, it's a yellow card that's 10 minutes of in. By the time they come back on, the players have cooled down, and like 9 times out of 10, I've had a player come up to me after coming back on, after they've been 10 minutes in the bin, and they've actually apologised for what's occurred, and they've actually been more talkative and more approachable during the game too. So it's been a fantastic tool. It's been there. I know it's got its positives and its negatives in the aspect from like clubs and players' perspectives too. But as a tool for referees, I think it's a great thing.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm a pretty big fan of a lot of sports, and it's interesting to see how the referee or the umpire is sort of treated in those sports. Rugby union, very much sort of famed almost for being incredibly respectful towards the referees. And the AFL this season, the AFL has come down a lot harder on the dissent rule and are giving a 50-metre free kick when a player gives dissent. So players are now starting to go, ooh, hang on, this is a little bit different. What can we learn from sort of observing these other sports, and what can we take away from those?
Are we talking as referees or as players here?
I think
that's my question.
I suppose there's two perspectives of that, but yeah.
As for myself, I mean, I don't speak for Joey, but for myself as a referee, you watch is it Clive Owens from the rugby union from years ago?
I was going to say
Nigel Owens. Nigel
Owens.
So from the rugby union years ago, and his banter on the field with the players, and as well as just being able to have a laugh with the players and be able to stamp his authority when needed, and the respect from that he got is huge. And being able to take that from the game and like transition into other sports too is a great thing. I think the big thing for me is got to be able to have a good bit of banter with the players on the field. You know, be able to have a laugh, because you got to enjoy yourself as a referee on the field, and the players have got to enjoy themselves as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and it's part of our sport. I might go another way than what we thought in terms of the discipline, but in terms of the laws of the game and that flexibility that we have, like we have such a great game that we're involved with. And, you know, the match officials are facilitators of that. To us, to have that flexibility, to have a bit more of a conversation and relationship, like there's so much passion in it. And myself, like I watch all sports, but I find those aspects make it a bit sterile. Yeah. You know, it takes away from some of the emotion and the theatre of the game. And I always find it really interesting. Obviously, we have the incorporation of the VAR system now, you know, whether it's in the A-League, whether it's in the World Cup that's coming up, that incorporation. And for me to have that, and, you know, it kind of comes and goes, and anyone who's been in football long enough, they see the, you know, as much as you get calls against you, sometimes they will go for you, and it creates so much of it into it. It's such a talking point of the game, you know, it's huge to it. But then on the other side, like you look at that respect they have through for it. You don't see a comparison of a Nigel Owen anymore, you know. The last time you really think of it, Pele Luigi Collina back in 2002. Universally respected, only referee to be on the front of a video game box. Yeah, you look at that. No one else has done that. No one in league's done that. No cricket umpire's done that. But that's the thing, you know, it's a lot of the onus is on us as well as match officials, you know, to have that banter, to have that tact for the game, to understand, you know, this is when I can do it, this is when I can't. And, you know, we really are. And we had person Harvey Cohen, he was one of our referee coaches a few years back. You know, we're managers of the game. Yeah. And having that into it, it adds to it. You know, we don't want to be involved with it. We are the third team. But at the end of the day, we want the two teams that are there, the two main teams, to be able to play a good game of football, you know. And it has its plus and negatives, but I think, I definitely see where they're going for with it. But the purist in the game for me, I love the banter, I love the chat, I love, you know, people so invested and so emotionally attached to the game. Like it's hard to where you find that line to when you finally cut it, and this is, you know, what we're going with. Yeah.
Interesting. On the laws of the game, something you've been very much involved with recently at the 2022 referee state conference, you sat on the panel and mediated that on how the laws of the game are changing, and especially like with the handball you mentioned earlier. How have you enjoyed that involvement there? As we were sort of talking about with how the way IFAB changed them and when they changed them. So how do you enjoy that?
Yeah, I love it. It's fascinating. Like we talk about my career's span nearly 20 years now. Yeah. And I have a look at the difference when you go back then in terms of how we consider what a foul was, what handball was, you know, all these different things, cautions to coaches. Yeah. You know, it's really interesting to go through, and, you know, I think we go back to the program that's about to be launched with Football Queensland, and that education's huge. We're very unique in Australia because, you know, we got to be on top of it. You know, we run calendar year for football in Australia, whereas the rest of the world runs fiscal year. So, you know, they start that June, July, and then roll through. And it's a bit crazy because we have this awkward 4-month period where people are watching the EPL and they're seeing these new laws, whereas we've still got 4 months of our competition to play out. Yeah. And it's hugely important for the understanding of the game, and especially, you know, you look at the competitive levels, for the knowledge of that's sometime tactically how a team will win a competition or just, you know, win the big games. So that interpretation of law is huge.
Yeah. What rule do you reckon has changed almost the most in your time of 19, 20 years? Would it be the handball rule, or?
I've got to say it. Well, the most changes to it's got to be handball. Yeah. You know, it's every year there's something to amend it, and I wouldn't want to sit in IFAB or FIFA or the FA's position because that's a hard job. You know, I couldn't even tell you a recommendation of how to fix it. Yeah. You know, back in the day when you started, hit your arm, penalty, you know, free kick.
Yeah.
These days, you know, the sub clause 7, 8, 9 across it. You know, if they're falling, but then if they're putting their arm out, but if it's ricocheted off another player, you know, it's difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's got to be the biggest change, and it's hard to interpret. So you know, for people like ourselves that are spending hours on it, weeks on it in a year, for the average punter, like it's got to be hard. How can they pick it up in a bite-sized piece to be able to watch this full competition and not get the frustration out of it?
Yeah. Interesting. Obviously, as a referee for a number of years, you'd probably almost develop a certain skill or specialise in a certain skill. What's probably your skill that you really call on the most and consider probably the best within your game or your management of the game? And then sort of second to that, what would you recommend a young referee coming through to really sort of focus on to develop their game?
Yeah, I think for myself, I really base myself on people management, people skills. I think that's a really big thing, being able to work with people and as a match official, try to get the best out of a game. And across my professional life, I've grown up in this game, and as a match official, that's allowed me to develop into the man I am. And, you know, there's so many other match officials out there that, you know, we've got lawyers, we've got doctors, we've got all these different professions, and they're getting these skills from being a match official. And it's amazing the marriage of that between the two of them. And like, it's inadvertent, but like the culture and what's been built over the last 20 years, you have a look and it just gives it so much to you. For a young match official, it's difficult because, you know, luckily I think Football Queensland's coming to the table and backing them, the under 18s armbands, the teal shirts, and hopefully for them, they can just work out there, get the fundamentals of the laws of the game. Because that's, you know, for me, I think it's pretty good. You know, you don't have to deal with the consequences of a problem if you don't have a problem. So if we got good young match officials out there making good decisions, you know, you got to be able to, because we're not always going to see eye to eye as spectators, as coaches, as players. Them having that first instance of good decision making, then the rest of it will come as they develop as a person. You know, everyone blooms in their own time, and as a young match official, getting those reps in and having a good interpretation of law and good opportunities to deliver it and have the confidence to deliver it is really, really important for them, because it'll save them a lot of concern and a lot of friction points at times.
Yeah. You've worked with a lot of great referees that have come from Queensland. Jared Gillett, who's now in the UK, became the first non-English or Irish referee to officiate a Premier League match. Also, Alex King refereeing in the A-Leagues, Casey Rybelt and Kate Jakowitz, as we've sort of discussed.
Yeah.
What is one of the things you've learnt most from them, or like from them, around them, in your career? Yeah.
I think that you've just named some of the best people, like in terms of personality, approach to life that you'll ever meet. Like it's hard because the normal person walking out, going and watching a game, just see that person, see a FQ logo, a FIFA badge, whatever it is. They may not get to meet that person. But the same quality that all four of those people have is they're great people. You know, they're down to earth, lovely people, really good understanding of the game, really good integrity and commitment to everything they do. You know, it's for a young match official, for anyone. Seeing those people are awesome. Like I'm glad that I can call them my mates, and you know, they're people you can chat with. But yeah, that's for me, being able to pick that off them. You know, they're all very humble people as well. You look at it, the likes of who they've taken the field with. You know, the women, they're out there, they're refereeing the top 5 teams in the world. It's ridiculous. You know, they're out there with superstars. You know, same thing with the boys. Jared, obviously, over there rubbing shoulders. I mean, when he was here, every time the European teams came, he was refereeing them. You know, and he's our best match official, you know, with Australian blood. He's not got a FIFA badge here at the moment. But for him flying our flag, like, it's not just him. There's so many others, and they're still here. Alex, obviously, coming through. Alex, awesome referee. Chris Beath, both of those boys coming through, like, fantastic, you know, and that depth to it. And they're all Queenslanders. We look at the names. They're all Queenslanders, everyone we're speaking about. That's not taking anything away from the guys down south. Still awesome match officials down there. Sean Evans, Johnny Barrero coming through. In the women's, you know, there's Delphina down in Canberra. She's doing a lot for match officials. They're all great people. And now I think that's the biggest thing out of it. And what hopefully the average spectators or teams can see is these are people out there doing their best. And they're exceptional. But it's such a good good representation of our game out of Queensland for football and especially for match officials.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the growth of and the pathway as well to becoming a referee like that. Like career-wise, what would you see? Where do your goals sit? Are you sort of still on that pathway, or are you sort of happy sort of?
I'm a bit different. So all those people you named were referees. I'm an assistant referee. So I'm a bit different. I run up and down the line. As some of the boys say at training, we only do half the work because we only run half the field. But yeah, that's the aspiration for me. For myself is to get onto that national stage. That's first and foremost the big goal for me at the moment. Like if that doesn't eventuate, I'll deal with that because, everything I've done in Queensland has been amazing. Like I've been very fortunate in Football Queensland to have that support for me off the field as well as what they've been able to reward me with in terms of actual appointments has been incredible. But yeah, for myself, the next goal is just really getting through to that next stage, be able to referee on the A-Leagues and, continue what I've had for opportunities. I've been able to go pretty far in the Football Australia Cup. I think that's the name of it now.
Australia Cup,
Australia Cup, formerly the FFA Cup. And like that for me is huge. But outside of that, it's just really enjoying the game in Queensland. I'm lucky to have been on so many of the NPL and the State League fixtures. It's really just enjoying that and being able to get out there with my mates and officiate games.
Yeah. I suppose lastly, obviously in a big career, what are the highlights there? What are the games you really remember?
I think, like you have a look through, I've been really fortunate. So 7 NPL finals was really good. 1 FQPL. I think going back to it, on the national stage, I've been very lucky. I mentioned the football or the Australia Cup, of course. Like I was really, really fortunate. I think I'm one of the few match officials who aren't on one of the A-League competitions who's been able to be on a semi-final.
Yeah, wow.
To be appointed for that game between Melbourne City and Brisbane Strikers a few years back. That was a huge highlight for me. I think really though, I look at it, I got the opportunity to do the NPL national final. So obviously we haven't had it for a few years. But being able to do that with my wife, who was the 4th official, Lara Lee, that's a really cool thing because it's a family thing as well as, for what we're doing, getting that nod from Football Australia and them giving us that opportunity, it really means a lot. So that was a huge highlight, those couple of things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming in today. It was good to chat about all the changes in laws and all that. It's a great insight into the perspective of referees. So